So your connection with space, of course, you were, I thought, an astrophysics major, but a physics major, and always interested in space. It seemed like your earlier movies. And then what about, were you into these serials and kind
Oh yeah, I loved the serials, Flash Gordon and others, but the adventure movies I loved growing up. It wasn't just science fiction. I really enjoyed most genres of film, as long as there was action, I guess, of some sort. And so when Indiana Jones came up, I remember George came downstairs one day and he wanted a picture off the wall in my room. I had a picture of a flying wing just up there. Give me that, you know. And I was taking it off to get a reference for the flying wing. And I said, what are we doing next? And he said, we're doing Raiders of the Lost Ark. And I thought he was joking. I thought, you know, what's that kind of title is that? But no, he wasn't. And he said, it's like a Republic serial. It's going to be great, you know, all kinds of adventures in it. So it was the beginning of another adventure, you know, whole different genre, you know. And of course we had Steven Spielberg directing, and in talks with Steven initially, we resonated a lot. We'd grown up seeing the same kinds of movies, loved the same things. He recognized a lot of the old classic sound effects and could kind of speak that language with me, and I think that helped the development of the sound design.
And did you he started to talk to you at the script stage?
We talked beforehand, before they were off shooting, once again, probably at the encouragement of George, you know, just because we were going to go out and start gathering things for it while they were shooting. Once again, it's important to have that development time, and that was a luxury compared to most projects, maybe even today to some degree, that you get some time after a script is available or artwork is available to get inspired by what's going to be done and make a list of things that you might want to record and not just pull everything from a library. The style of Indiana Jones, and I think I kind of discussed this with Spielberg, was going to be like a comic book. The sound effects are like those big printed giant, you know, kapow and bam, and bang in comic books. Louder, more exaggerated. We could have gone to pretty much any standard library at the studio. We found what we wanted, you know, guns and airplanes and fight sounds, but we wanted to, I wanted more than anything else to sort of take those ideas, since I knew those sounds, and regenerate them in stereo and new recording technology, and magnetic recordings, and to base the ideas, the concepts on what were in the old serials and classic adventure movies, but make them huge. I mean, so guns were no longer a pop, they were a cannon. And then you went up from there. We have a little clip just talking about the whip.
We started by getting one of the prop whips from the production. In fact, Harrison Ford came by the sound department, showed Gary Summers, our assistant sound person, to how to use it, and he was able to make the whip crack really well. And we took that outside and recorded as well. But once again, the whip wasn't quite big enough, and so in my sound studio, in the sound design suite, I would add other things to it. And one of the most important elements of Indy's whip is the Harrier jump jet. We recorded a jet at an air show, and it had a good whoosh by that was really big, and so that was used, especially the very first time Indy uses his whip, right after the end of the titles.
At this point, George owned his ranch property, but nothing was developed on it yet. But we used it as our giant recording stage because it was quiet. As long as you went out after the morning bird stopped and before the tree frogs in the afternoon started. And Gary Summers, who was, we were working together on recording material at this time. We were doing gunshots out there and fire and explosives and various things. We also went to some Army bases where we had microphones downrange to get bullets after they had missed the target, ricocheting all over it. They became lots of different types of laser sounds. So we would add rockets to them and things with the zip and sound of the bullets in motion once they're ricocheting, where we found endless usage as both lightsaber hits as well as other weapons, and it also helps us once in a while to throw your body against a truck, you know, that sort of thing. And I have another little clip here with John Resch. John Resch worked on the original Foley, and recently he and I got together on the Foley stage and talked about some of the effects that memories we had from doing Raiders.
Let's talk a little bit about the fight sounds in the movie.
Okay, good.
Yeah, you know, I produced a lot of big impacts, different ways, with baseball gloves and other things of that sort. One of the things I ended up using to get a good body hit was to take a couple of croquet balls, put them in some socks like this, where you never get a good sound just hitting yourself, you know.
And it doesn't feel good.
Another person. We thought at one time hitting a chicken would be perfect. A dead chicken, I thought it out from the grocery store. And we took it out and we slammed that chicken, and it did not sound any good at all. It was just a click. And it spawned the phrase, chicken hit. If something came out and sounded like a chicken hit, it meant it was a failure. So you didn't want to come back from any expedition with any chicken hits. But anyways, one way of doing some nice body hits is to get balls here in some socks so you can get some velocity behind it here. Get some object you want to hit. Sometimes it's a piece of furniture. You get a crack with the wood, which is good for the sock on the chin, and a thud, which is with the resonance of whatever object you're hitting. But there are more subtle sounds in the fights, John. But what would Foley be doing in one of our fight scenes?
I am glad you asked, Ben, because again, we talked about texture. So what I'd be doing, I would be setting up with, what's ubiquitous for Foley? A couple things. Number one being celery. Number two being a chamois. So I'll take a semi-wet chamois. Take the chamois and wrap it around the celery. So we have a couple things going on here. We've got a little gush to the things. We got a little crack of the celery, and we have behind it this cushion. So when we go like this, now mind you, of course, that's one effect, so to speak. We give that to Ben. Ben puts it together with all his elements, and then you get the big punch of Indy.
Right. Now, did you use celery for biting?
So you had to go there, Ben. Okay, fine. Well, all right, if I have to do it, take the celery, and you get a nice crunch. Or, as you see, the big termite getting bitten on the wrist.
You know, I'm surprised.